The diner sat at the edge of the highway like it had been forgotten by time, its neon sign flickering with a tired patience that mirrored the people inside. The air smelled of burnt coffee and old memories, the kind that linger even after the doors close for the night. It was the kind of place where strangers crossed paths but rarely crossed hearts. On that afternoon, the world inside the diner felt small, contained, almost ordinary, until it wasn't. She sat near the window, hands folded tightly in her lap, her shoulders slightly hunched, as though she were trying to take up less space in a world that already felt too loud. Her legs trembled beneath the table, not from cold, but from habit. An unconscious response to a lifetime of being watched, judged, whispered about. The brace on her left leg gleamed under the fluorescent lights, metal and straps holding together a body that had learned to endure more than most. Her tray held a bowl of soup, untouched, the steam rising as if even it was waiting for permission to exist. The bell above the door rang sharply, and with it came laughter, loud, careless, sharp-edged. 3 young people stepped inside, their voices bouncing off the walls as if the diner belonged to them. They carried the kind of confidence that comes from never having to wonder whether the world would make space for them. They took a booth not far from hers, glancing around, scanning, searching for something or someone to notice. It didn't take long. One of them leaned back and nudged the others, his chin tilting toward the girl by the window. His smile wasn't kind. It was curious in the way a child studies something fragile, not to protect it, but to test how easily it breaks. The laughter softened into whispers, then rose again, louder, deliberate. She kept her eyes on her soup, pretending not to hear, pretending she was invisible. But invisibility is a fragile shield. A chair scraped. Footsteps approached. She felt the air shift before she saw him, the shadows stretching across her table like a warning. He leaned in just enough for her to smell the sharp sweetness of soda on his breath. "Hey," he said, voice thick with mock concern. "You okay there? You look slow." Her fingers tightened around the spoon. She didn't answer. Another laugh echoed behind him. "Maybe she can't hear you, or maybe she just doesn't understand." The words landed like stones, each one heavier than the last. A few heads turned. Some faces registered discomfort. Others turned away, suddenly fascinated by menus and phones. The waitress froze behind the counter, her hands gripping a towel, eyes darting between the table and the door as if hoping someone else would step in. The girl finally looked up. Her eyes were gentle, tired, but steady. "Please," she said softly, "I just want to eat." That should have been the end of it. It should have been enough. But cruelty rarely listens to reason. The boy laughed again, louder this time, and before anyone could stop him, his hand flicked out, smacking the side of her face. Not hard enough to knock her down, but hard enough to sting, hard enough to humiliate, hard enough to remind her, and everyone watching, that some people believe power is something you take. The diner went silent. The spoon slipped from her hand and clattered against the floor. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just sat there, stunned, her cheek flushed red, her breath shallow. For a moment it looked like the entire room had forgotten how to breathe with her. Someone muttered, "Hey man," but no one moved. The boy stepped back, satisfied, his friends laughing nervously now, adrenaline buzzing through them. "Relax," he said. It was a joke. A joke. The word hung in the air, heavy and ugly. She reached down slowly, carefully to pick up her spoon, her hands shaking. Her eyes shimmered, but she refused to let the tears fall. She had learned long ago that crying only made it worse. The bell above the door rang again. This time the sound was different. Not sharp, not careless, deliberate. Boots hit the floor, heavy, steady, measured. The air shifted, not with fear but with presence. One by one they walked in, leather jackets catching the light, their silhouettes filling the doorway. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the grill seemed to hiss more quietly. They didn't announce themselves. They didn't need to. There was something about the way they moved, calm, unhurried, like men and women who had seen storms and learned how to stand in them. Their jackets bore patches worn soft with time, stitched stories of roads traveled and battles survived. They took in the room with a single sweep of their eyes, not searching, just understanding. One of them noticed the girl first. He didn't stare. He didn't rush. He simply paused, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly as his gaze fell on her trembling hands, the reddening mark on her cheek, the spoon lying on the floor between her feet. Another of them followed his line of sight. Then another. No words passed between them, but something passed all the same, an understanding older than speech. They took a table, the chairs scraping softly as they sat. The noise of the diner didn't return. Everyone felt it now. The shift, the change in temperature, the sense that something had begun moving that could not be easily stopped. The girl stared down at her soup, unaware of the quiet circle of attention forming around her. Her breath came in shallow pulls, her shoulders tight, as if bracing for another strike that might come at any moment. One of the bikers stood. He wasn't tall in a dramatic way, but there was a gravity to him, a steadiness that pulled eyes toward him whether they wanted to look or not. He walked slowly, not toward the boys, but toward the counter. He nodded to the waitress, his voice low and calm. "Another bowl of soup," he said, "and a glass of water." The waitress blinked, then nodded quickly, grateful for something normal to do. He turned slightly, just enough that the boys could see him now. They shifted in their seats, bravado flickering as uncertainty crept in. One of them scoffed, trying to laugh it off, but the sound died halfway out of his throat. The biker didn't look at them yet. He walked to the girl's table and gently pulled out the chair across from her. He didn't sit immediately. Instead, he crouched just enough to meet her eyes, keeping a respectful distance. "You didn't deserve that," he said quietly. Her lips trembled. She swallowed, nodding once. "May I sit with you?" he asked. She hesitated, then nodded again. He sat slow and careful, as if every movement was meant to say, "You are safe right now." Behind him, the others shifted, spreading out subtly, not blocking exits, not threatening, just present, watching. The boy who had slapped her let out a short, uneasy laugh. "What, you guys are bodyguards now?" No one answered him. The biker at the table reached for the spoon on the floor and set it gently beside her bowl. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said, his voice steady, warm. "Some people mistake cruelty for strength. It isn't." Her eyes filled, and this time a tear escaped, sliding down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. The waitress arrived with the soup and water, placing them carefully in front of the girl. Her hands shook slightly. "On the house," she whispered. The biker nodded in thanks. Across the diner, one of the boys shifted again, suddenly very aware of how small his laughter sounded now. He opened his mouth to say something, anything, but the words tangled and fell apart under the weight of all those calm, unblinking eyes. The silence grew thicker, heavier, pressing against the walls. And then one of the bikers stood up, not fast, not angry, just enough to be noticed. And that was when the real lesson began.